I felt the one that I had on there, although I liked it, was too much like flat faces and just too geometric, and we've done that already. So before I start, it's due today, but I want to key in on how I want it handed in, okay? And there's a sample of it down here at the bottom. It's not the sample for you guys, but it's the same idea, okay? Oh, my sample went away? No way. All right, let's put it back up. This is how I want to hand it in. All right, I want on the left-hand side all of the recreations, and on the right-hand side all the trees. You do not even need the flower photo. You can dump it once you go to hand it in, okay? I want this because it's a good way to show the comparison of the styles. I understand that the flowers are going to get smaller. I get that, all right? Couple of things to note, or excuse me, one thing really to note in Illustrator that's going to affect this next style that we do, and that is working in Illustrator's settings, okay? So if I go up here into my Illustrator Preferences in general, right over here is this scale, stroke, and effects. All right, Jordan, make sure you're paying attention, please. I know you know, but you're not. So here's scale, stroke, and effects. All right, when that's checked, all right, and I have a stroke on an object, let me get rid of my fill so you guys can see this. All right, and my stroke is thick. So let's call it, I don't know, let's go 30. All right. And I scale this. You'll notice the stroke scales with it. That is what you're going to want when you're scaling down your flower. Because you might notice you'll scale it down. And if that's not checked off, so if I go here and go to Illustrator Preferences, General, and this is unchecked, when I scale this down, you notice it stays at 30, which for the next project might be helpful to click back and forth. But if you've got your flower designed a certain way, as big as it is, like this, and it's got a 1-point stroke, when you shrink it down, the stroke's going to stay 1 point. All of a sudden, everything's going to start filling in. All right? So understand that there's that little setting. By default, it's usually checked off. So chances are students have checked it on. All right? And again, I'll show you where it comes in handy with the next style. But that's something to think about when you're scaling your flower. If you scale that flower illustration down or your recreation down, you go, ugh, it doesn't look very good. Undo, go to your preferences, and uncheck that scale, stroke, effects, or check it if you would. All right? So keep that in terms of how I want to hand it in. I want to hand it in a particular way because in our field, a spec or something that is a specification of the project is really important. Right? And if you don't follow them, generally speaking, things don't get printed correctly. So I'm trying to get you guys into the mode of following exactly what I say. You know, when it comes time to print this out for your portfolio, we're going to change it a little bit. But for now, this is how I want it. All right? So getting into this, I've already downloaded my image. It should be over here somewhere. So this one's called Fade, or Fades. I think I probably popped it into the wrong layer. Yep. So I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to paste it. All right? And I'm going to tuck this over here. And this one's really easy to create and really easy to kind of work with. So I'm going to lock my originals. I'm going to go to my drawings. And all we're going to do is going to create ellipses, and we're going to snip them. All right? And we're going to work with gradients. So first things first, I need my swatches. So here's all my wonderful swatches previously. So this one's Fades. All right? And I'm going to go in here. I'm going to grab the colors at the beginning that are heaviest. All right? So I grab this sort of burgundy color. All right? I click and I hold, and I drag it in. Get away. And these are the same color. I grab this gold orange color, whatever you want to call it. These two are the same. I grab the green. The green's got its own individual. I grab the sort of aqua teal, if you will. And these three blues are actually a little different. So I grab these, and I grab this last darker blue. All right? So those are the colors, 6 colors in total. So I got my colors set up. Now I'm going to grab my Ellipse tool, and I'm going to hold the Shift key. And what I want is a stroke. I would start off, for the sake of just having it, with black. All right? And I'm going to jack up that stroke. Now, your stroke size is going to depend on, notice I brought this in and I didn't scale it. So if you bring it in and don't scale it, your stroke will be the same as mine. I'm going to hold the Shift key, and I'm going to try to get this circle the same. I'm actually looking at, let me do this first. I'm looking at trying to line this up in the center. All right, just to make my life easier. It's not going to be exact in the center, but notice how this cuts through the center of this line, and this cuts through the center of this line. About as close as it can. All right, and that's fine. So I'm going to push this up, and let's call it 28. Let's call it 30. I like even numbers. All right, and I'm going to drop this down a little bit. All right, so that's about where I want it. So now I've got this first one. All I'm going to do now is copy and paste in, not in back, paste in place. And I'm going to hold the Shift and the Option key, or the Shift and the Alt key for those of you on a PC. And I'm just going to scale this one down. Now you'll notice it's not scaling. And that's because in my preferences, I have scale and stroke unchecked. If it was checked, it wouldn't be a big deal. It would just be one extra step, whereas it would scale down and I'd have to bump it back to 30. Scale it down, bump it back to 30. Does that make sense? All right. So I'm just going to keep it because this is easier. Now I'm going to go Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste in place. And same thing, Shift Option or Shift Alt if you're on a PC. Down. Now I'm going same thing. Edit, Copy, Edit, Paste in place. You get the idea. So now I have this glorious target, basically. Okay? And now what I'm going to do with this particular little guy is I'm going to bring it back over, all right, because I want to get these cuts just right. And what I'm going to do, all right, is I am going to just go back to my stroke, and I'm going to thin it out a little bit. Because I want to see where those cuts are. And I'm going to bring it back afterwards. Does that make sense? You could probably change the opacity, but I find with the gradient underneath, it's kind of hard. Right? So I'm going to grab the first one, and I'm going to grab my scissors, which are under the eraser tool. And I'm going to click, this one's easy, right at the beginning. Now what I want to do is I want to go, and your eyes are better than my eyes, okay? I'm going to look for where the color just about ends, and I feel that's right around here, and I'm going to snip. Now I'm going to go here to this one, and I'm going to snip, and I'm going to go right where the color just about ends, and I think that's there. All right? Now I'm going to grab my selection tool, and I'm going to go take the pieces that I don't need off. All right? Again, next circle. Scissors. Hey, scissors. This one's right on a path anchor point, which I've done. That's actually easy. Click here. Same thing at the beginning, and same thing right about where the color ends, which is roughly there. Delete. Delete. Next circle. Scissors right at the end, and right about at the end, and right at the end, and right at the end. All right. So far, nothing amazing going on here. Pretty simple. Scissors. Again, this one's on an anchor point. I think this ends like right around here. And same thing, this one's on an anchor, and this one we'll call it there. Go back, delete the pieces I don't need. All right? So now I have this kind of, what I actually think is somewhat of an interesting shape anyway, visually, even though it's just pieces of circles. All right? So now I need my gradients. So I'm going to take this piece, and I'm going to turn it into a gradient. Now, in your gradient panel, because we're on a stroke, we have options. We have apply gradient within, we have along, and we have across. All right? You want to stick with the first one, apply gradient within. That means it's going to start here and end here, which is what we want. Now, the first color, the black, we're just going to double click here. And the only thing I don't like about this is I can't kind of see the colors, but this is the last set, and this is your set here. The one at the bottom is the last folder that you made, okay? Not crazy that you can't change this. But we're looking at that brown, so I'm going to click the brown, okay? Then what I'm going to do is there's two ways to do this. Because we're pretty much going to be on white, all right? So let me see if I can take this and move it over to the white. All right. We're on white. What we could do with this is I can take this and I can shift the white until it disappears like that. Okay? Your gradient's not going to be exact, but as close as you can with that. Now, the other thing I could do, because if I brought this over here, I would see the white. And you don't have to do this. This is just me kind of showing, Jordan, pay attention. Eyes aren't up here, man. I can change the opacity so that it disappears. Okay? And that would be good if it wasn't being on, if it was like being printed on a blue shirt. Okay? I wouldn't want that there. I'd actually want it to be, I'd actually want it to be nothing. Okay? So we can go back to it just being 100% and shifting that white because we're going to be here. So now I go to the next one. All right? And I can actually grab my picker tool and I can do that. And although that's probably too much, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to move the white back a little bit. All right. I click on here. Actually, I don't like, let's do along. That feels better. Do the second one. Along the stroke. That feels better. Yeah, I like that. It's weird I did that on the shorter one. So I'll pull this up a little bit. And all I'm trying to do is get it to feel the same way. So click. Again, now I'm going to do my gradient. This one's this orange color. So I'm going to kick my gradient. And we want to put it on gradient along. And I'll double click here. Grab my orange. All right. And so just kind of going along doing the same thing. Let's do a blue because it's just fun. Here's a blue. So again, gradient, middle one, which is apply gradient along. Double click. And this is that teal sort of blue color. All right. And if you have to adjust the white, you just pull the white to get more or less of the gradient. Okay. So that's pretty basic. Now, how are you going to do the flower? Well, one of the things and one of the challenges of this whole thing is I don't want everyone's flowers to look the same. Like, I don't want you all to do the same thing because that's kind of boring. The main challenge of this is to learn how to draw the styles that we're drawing and then figure out how you would apply them to the flower. So if I was doing this, I might mess around with, maybe I'm doing a circle like this and another circle like this and another circle like this and another circle like this. I don't know. And maybe I'm taking this, and this is, I'm messing around. Bless you. I'm messing around with this being like the top of the flower. And then maybe I'm doing, like, let's do half circles, I guess. We'll go like this. I'm grabbing my scissors. All right. I'm snipping these off. Maybe I'm taking these, and I'm using these to make the sort of bowl of the flower, I guess, if you will. All right. And I'm kind of just messing around like that. All right. And again, you can snip anywhere you want to snip, which is nice about the scissor tool. Okay. So really, it's going to be up to you how you sort of handle this. Now, yeah, the stem is going to look really bad if you try to make it out of circles. So chances are it's going to be a line with a gradient in it. I'm okay with that. All right. I picked this style for two reasons. One, I think it's kind of cool, and two, it's really easier. So that because it's Friday. All right. So this is what I want you working on. If you haven't finished the other ones, obviously you got to kick to those two. All right. It's due today. Again, I want to have all the ones on the left set up and all the ones on the right. There'll be 5 of them. All right. Flowers on the right, styles on the left. Roughly all the same size as best you can do it. All right. That way we can kind of compare them and see them all. All right. You're going to be handing in your file in Classroom. I believe it is a PDF. Let me double check. Yep, you're going to hand in a PDF. Okay. It says to hand a printout in. You don't have to hand a printout in. All right. But if you'd like to, you can. But you're handing in a PDF. So to create a PDF, just to remind you, it's File, Save As, and all you're going to do is change it to a PDF. That's it. All right. Any questions?